And you're just blindly believing that.
No, I've looked into it.
Have you been out to space to verify?
You don't have to go out to space to verify.
Well, then how do you fact check it? How are you so sure?
Because you can check the weather patterns and they match.
So show me a weather pattern that
Sure.
matches that one
Let's go
from
see
another
Australia's
country.
current weather. Let's see, where do we want to look? Let's see, I got Sydney. Can I get satellite imagery of Sydney?
Are you a Neil deGrasse Tyson fan?
Yeah, he's all right.
You know, he says that the Earth isn't round; it's actually pear-shaped.
Barely, yeah.
Doesn't look pear-shaped to me though. So.
Yeah, barely. It's barely pear-shaped. Okay,
That looks like
perfect.
a
Look at
perfect
this.
sphere.
So, see this big swirl coming out of Melbourne, heading south? See this big swirl? Matches. And this is
Yeah, you
this
can
is American data versus Japanese data.
you can overlay any CGI imagery you
Sure.
want on top of a picture. That's pretty easy
Sure,
to
but then
do.
why did they go to all the trouble of launching the satellite into space?
A lot of reasons that you probably wouldn't understand.
Sure.
But have you ever been to Chicago?
No. So it doesn't exist.
From my research, I'm from Chicago.
No,
and I
Chicago
used to
doesn't
drive.
exist.
Oh, okay.
Prove to me Chicago exists.
Proves you Chicago exists?
Yeah.
Well, you could go there and find out yourself.
I've never been there.
Well, you could go.
Well, you could go to space.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I could go out that far out on
Yeah.
the Japanese satellite.
Build a rocket and go out.
You could too if you wanted to believe so hard in it.
Yeah,
Prove it.
that's
But you must not believe that hard in it.
well, I don't believe in Chicago, so there you go.
That's a choice. You don't have to believe in
Oh,
anything.
okay. Well, and it's your choice to not believe in space. Doesn't mean space isn't real.
Well, if you could verify it, you could believe
Right
in
here.
it. But
Verified.
you're believing in something that you can't verify.
Verified right here.
A picture of a perfectly circle.
There's a picture
Yeah.
every 10 minutes. See? Every 10 minutes. You can actually watch the shadow.
I'm actually a
across
photo
the surface.
editor. I could mock you up.
Oh,
a
you want
picture
to
of
talk
Earth
to
in
a photo
10
editor?
minutes.
We can talk to a photo editor. Let's talk to a professional photographer who edits photos for a living. Hello, professional photographer that edits
Stevie.
photos for a living. How are you doing?
Howdy.
Hey, how are you?
Doing
Thanks
great.
for letting me up. Stevie, who do you edit for?
Who do I edit for? That's personal.
Is it a company or
Okay.
is it your own company?
That's personal.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
To be clear, a photo editor is someone who selects images, not someone who alters images.
Mhm.
So if you're going to say things, make sure you're using the right jargon, because professional photo editors would never claim they use Photoshop to alter images. So, mistake number one. Stevie.
NASA editors actually are on record admitting that they Photoshop photos
Yeah.
all the time. of
Yeah.
Earth. Look at the
So-
blue marble.
Yeah.
So-
Well, which blue marble?
Yeah.
The famous blue marble picture.
No, the famous one is on film. You're talking about the 2012 one.
Mhm.
I'm talking about every picture. 'Cause
No.
every picture looks different.
No, because here's
It's all
the thing.
Photoshop.
Do you understand that when you click on an image, NASA tells you how they created the image, right?
Yeah, and they use composite imaging.
Right. In this one, they use composite. It tells you. But when you look at the 1972 blue marble,
How does compositing change the shape of something, Stevie?
Because
So,
when you take
here, see this
geographical
caption?
images from low orbit,
This caption
you have to stitch
says,
them together, so you could stitch them together in any
right.
shape you really want.
So on this image, it says this photograph of the Earth was taken on December 7th by the crew of the Apollo mission. But then we go back to the other blue marble that you were just talking about, right? And it doesn't say photograph, does it? It says
Stevie, how-
compositing. It says it right there, compositing. So they're not
Stevie.
lying. They tell you exactly how they make these images. It's on the website.
Right, and you were using that as an
How would-
example. I'm just letting you know that that's
Stevie.
how NASA does their
Stevie,
pretty
Stevie,
simple.
since you're a photo editor, I'm hoping you can teach me something here. How would we? So I have Photoshop. I just bought Photoshop. I just downloaded it to my desktop. I have the latest, greatest version. I have multiple photos that I want to composite together. Can you walk me through how to do it?
Stitch them together. You could find some simple
No, I
tutorials on
well,
YouTube.
but that's no. You're the professional photo editor, right?
I
Can you
don't give
walk
out
me
free
through-
Photoshop lessons on TikTok. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can tell you how to do it. Would you like me to?
No, I already know. It's okay.
So here's
I
what you
don't.
would
Please tell me, Hassel. I don't know.
So here's what you would do. You would first open up the photos. If you shot them in a RAW format, Camera Raw would automatically open. In Camera Raw, you would want to batch tone them. So, like, if there's a color cast because you had like the incorrect white balance, or you're in RAW, there's going to be a color cast. You would want to make sure you get that color cast out across the board. But you also would want to make sure that you didn't lighten or brighten the individual photos without doing it to all of them. Because if you're stitching, there's going to be some images that need to be purposefully darker than others, because now you're using the same exposure across a wider field of view than your lens was capable of having. So you don't want to brighten individual ones more to make them look good individually. You want to apply those adjustments across everything as a batch. So you batch that, then you open it up into Photoshop all at once. So however many you have, whether it's 5 or 500, you open them up all at once, and then you go to Edit, Photo Merge. You got it? Photo
What are you
Merge.
talking about? What does that have
I'm
to
talking
do?
about how you stitch something.
It's how you make
in
a composite
Photoshop.
image.
Right, we've
Right.
already we've been past that.
But Stevie, it's
I'm
kind
not.
of weird.
I'm
that-
learning.
It's
No,
kind of
I
weird.
told
that
you they were composite images. You pulled up.
Yeah, but you
you
refused.
claimed you were a photo editor.
Description
You
that
refused to
stated it's a
explain
composite
how they
image.
composited.
So we've established they're composite images.
Yeah,
so
but you
we're moving
refused.
on.
You refused to explain how they composited it. So
I told
Hasselblad
you
is.
take multiple pictures from low Earth orbit and then you stitch them together in Photoshop. You want me to explain
Well-
technicalities, how to do that? in
Yeah,
Photoshop?
because you said you were a photo editor, right?
You said you weren't going to do it for free, so I had Hasselblad do it, who was more than happy to do it
We're
for free.
talking about the globe-minded false reality.
But
that you
Stevie,
subscribe.
when you
Don't
do
talk about
a
Photoshop.
Don't run away now. You want to talk about composite images, so we're talking about composite images. Is this
No, I
not what you want to talk
your
about?
Perfectly round.
It's not
blue
perfectly
marble
round.
That you
Yeah,
have
it's not
put up
perfectly
there. That you
It's not
believe
perfectly
is
round.
A live
not perfectly
photo.
round at all.
It's not perfectly round.
So Stevie, are there types of composite images that
Yeah,
don't?
your guys' leader Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's
He's
says
not
it's
my
a
leader.
pear shape.
I don't care what
Does
he
that
says.
look like a pear?
Slightly.
So to be
Where?
clear, the Earth is a pear never escaped Neil deGrasse Tyson's mouth.
True.
Actually, it
Those
did.
words, no. So what happened was he was on stage with someone else, and he was talking about how the Earth is slightly bigger in the southern hemisphere than compared to the northern
He says
hemisphere,
it's
and
oblate.
he's
It's pear shaped.
yeah. And the woman that he was on stage with said, "Oh, like a pear," and he said, "Yeah, kinda." He never said the Earth is like a pear. He
Ever so
agreed with someone that said
slightly
it and said
pear-shaped.
kinda. Yeah,
Do you want to
All
listen
right.
to the
So where's
original?
the pear shape in that
Yeah.
picture?
So it is
you would have
20.
to count the pixels.
It is 25 miles wider than it is tall. So if this image was 1,000 pixels tall, it would be about 1,002 pixels wide.
That's not a pear, but
Well, it's slightly pear-shaped. Do you want to hear the original argument from Neil deGrasse Tyson? We can watch
Yeah.
the video together. Here we
pull
go.
that up.
Sure.
Is bigger than the height of Mount Everest above sea level.
How much higher is the tall mountain that you identify in this book, which name I forget, and probably you do too, in Peru, or is it Ecuador?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. How much higher, if you were on top of this mountain in Ecuador, how much higher than the Mount Everest would you be?
There's a 20,000-foot mountain in Ecuador, which is right. Ecuador is like near the equator, hence Ecuador.
Oh, you're just not giving up.
And that mountain is actually, the summit of that mountain is 1 1/3 miles higher away from Earth's center than the summit of Mount Everest.
Okay. Question number
But,
two.
but you got to know, let me just so you understand. We've been fed a lie our entire, I want to call it a lie. We've been
It's a
fed,
point of view thing, I think.
we've been fed Earth has been misrepresented to us by geologists.
There you go.
Because the globes that you buy, that you rub your fingers over and you feel the Himalayas and you feel the Rocky Mountains. No. No, okay? These mountains are puny compared to the size of the Earth. You would not know they were there. If you were truly that size,
We might have gone
some big
past the
cosmic
pear-shaped
giant
part.
lumbering through space, coming upon the Earth, rubbing your hand on it, the depth of your, what do you call these things?
Your finger.
The fingerprint
prints.
mark,
Mark.
the depth of that would be greater than the entire range of distance from the Marianas Trench in the bottom of the Pacific to the top of Mount Everest. Therefore, you would close your eyes, rub your finger, you would not know whether you are on ocean, valley, mountain, or hill.
Well, you might be wet or dry. You might be,
Well, by how much wet?
a little.
How? No.
Yes.
You wouldn't even notice it. You're not going to say, oh, I got to dry my hand. The depth
Yeah.
of the ocean doesn't measure up to the depth of your fingerprint. That's my point.
Oh.
So we've been fed this misrepresentation of our own planet on the belief that, in fact, we have real surface features. But cosmically speaking, we're practically a perfect sphere. You spin, when
Okay.
you spin pizza dough, it kind of
Let's go
flattens
back
out.
to the actual pear
It's
argument.
wider in the middle. And so Earth,
And-
throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning. And it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
it turns out the pear-shapedness is bigger than the height of Mount Everest above sea level.
Okay. Makes sense. Made sense
All
to
right, there
me.
you go, Hassel. He called it a
Yeah,
pear.
the one I'm talking about is where he's on stage with a woman. That's
Yeah, that was not a
completely different
woman.
interview that I hadn't seen.
But there you go.
Okay, so it's supposed to be wider at the bottom. Doesn't look
No,
wider
not at the
now, so-
bottom. He said it is wider slightly below the equator than above the equator, which is to say the widest part of the Earth is just south of the equator, not at the
Yeah,
equator.
That doesn't. It actually looks wider up top. If I were to have to say it,
Well, you're eyeballing it. Have you actually measured it?
I got a pretty good eye.
Which you didn't measure it.
Stevie, how would we be able to measure that on the computer in Photoshop? What would you do to get to the pixels?
You could just count the pixels, but
How would
I
you
can
how
tell
would
from
you
my
get
eye
to
that the
how would you
bottom
get to
is
the
not
point to see
bigger
the
than the top.
pixels? Stevie, how would you get to the point to see the pixels?
Why, dude? You need like lessons. You can just look this shit up.
And I'm just trying to show that you lied about being a photo editor, man. It's completely obvious.
You want to talk
Okay,
about
so
Photoshop? Really?
I have a quick question actually, just to really nail down this claim, Stevie. How would you know where the equator is in this image?
The equator
Yeah.
runs through the middle of the Earth.
Right, but how would you know? Because you can't see the very top of this image because the very top of it is in shadow. So how would you know exactly where the equator is on this image?
I would just guess it's in the middle, judging on where
Okay.
Australia
And
is.
so how would you know that the widest part of this image is not just below the equator instead of at the equator?
By looking at the continents.
But you just said you don't know where the equator is.
I just told you in the middle
Yeah,
of the Earth.
guessing, you said. So how do you know that the widest part of this image is at the equator and not?
How do you know
Just
that
south
that's
of
a
the equator.
picture of the Earth?
Because it was just uploaded
Because
and
Japanese
matches.
told me so.
No, because it was just uploaded 16 minutes ago, and I verified the weather patterns to a non-Japanese source that also has imaging of cloud data.
And if you really, really, really wanted
So
to,
two separate things.
Yes,
And-
two separate things from two different space agencies from two separate countries.
and if you really wanted to, and you lived in the area that sees that this satellite sees, you can connect directly to the satellite yourself
already told him
without
that.
being. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he didn't
if I
care.
showed you a video, if I showed you a video of King Kong destroying a city,
Yeah.
and then showed you another
But-
video of
but
King Kong
Stevie,
destroying a city,
is
you'd be
it-
like,
Right.
"But there's
is it
two,
possible-
so it verifies it, so it must be
No,
real."
no, Stevie, we can analyze the photos.
Yeah.
We can analyze the King Kong video. There are people in the world that know how to
There
do
would be
that.
discrepancies between the two different King Kong videos. There's
Yeah,
no
okay,
discrepancies
so you can
between these cloud
analyze-
data.
Weather patterns.
But we
So-
can go deeper than that. We can,
Hasselblad, you want to talk Photoshop? I'm sure you understand layers. So you get you can
Sure.
layer you can layer
Sure.
weather patterns on top of an existing image.
how long does
Yeah.
that take
Hard.
to do, Stevie?
How long does it take to do?
They're releasing the photos every 10 minutes.
Every 10
How
minutes.
long does it take to do that?
You can automate it probably.
Oh, probably. I thought you were the photo editor, man.
Yeah. You want me
No,
to
you can't automate this.
I have like
You
Also,
can't automate it.
Do you? I also there's another thing I need you to look at. Hold on. There's another thing I need you to look at here. You see this really bright spot in the middle? See that? That is the specular reflection of the sun. It's going to take a while to load each frame here. And you see how it's moving across the surface? And see how it changes the lighting of the features around it? Is that a layer?
Detail is insane.
Is that a layer? Is this specular highlight changing the lighting of the geological features around it a layer?
You're talking about a video that
This isn't. These are images every 10 minutes. I'm asking.
right. Like I said,
This
I can
is
show you
a
video of
specular
King Kong
highlight.
to see. I can show you a video of anything.
This is
You're
a
gonna believe it?
specular highlight of the sun changing the lighting of the geological features around it.
So you're blindly believing.
I'm
that.
asking the quote unquote professional photograph editor if that is done with a layer.
You can easily layer clouds and weather patterns.
I am
on-
talking about the specular lighting that is changing the lighting
you can
of the
layer lighting,
geological
you can
features
layer
around it.
Colors. You can layer anything.
You can
want.
layer lighting. Is that your
Yes.
argument?
Yes.
Hasselblad, what's your professional opinion?
My goodness. Well, one, yes, layers are a thing. You can layer many things, and you can have a shit ton of layers, which you would need in order to do this. Can you layer lighting? Sorta, kinda. It wouldn't necessarily be layering lighting, though. What Stevie's doing is showing that he has no clue and doesn't even own Photoshop, but I digress.
Your best
This goes
idea.
beyond Photoshop. This would be
Your
video.
your best
So if you're
idea.
just
This
stuck in,
isn't
like,
This
video.
isn't video.
You might
This
not
is
realize how
photography.
easy it is to layer lighting on top of
No.
an existing video.
You would
Pretty
need,
easy.
in order to do this specular lighting efficiently, you would need to render a 3D model down to the detail
Yes.
of geology that this photograph is capable of taking, and then render the light in a cosmic
So we don't have Google
simulator.
Maps on our phone,
Hold
right?
on.
be
You would.
whatever-
I'm not
anywhere in
finished.
the world
I
you
am
can
not finished. You do not overtalk me on my own fucking live. You would need to 3D render down to the detail of this photo the geology and hydrology of the entire planet, then simulate light on a cosmic scale and render all of that in 10 minutes while also rendering everything else and layering everything else so that it matches reality perfectly every time. Now you can talk.
I don't know if he knows he's muted.
Let me send a invite to unmute. You got it.
Okay, yeah. That's you think that that's detailed?
Yes. You can see individual river deltas.
Okay, zoom in on your house. Zoom in on just your city.
I can get down to a river delta.
Yeah, that's not detailed at all.
That's not detailed? This is not
No, unless
detailed.
You could zoom in on your house, that would be detailed.
Stevie,
Google Maps, you could zoom in on your house.
Stevie,
So how
holy
come I
crap!
have more detail on my cell
And
phone?
how old are the images and how frequently are they updated on Google Maps to get that detail?
It doesn't matter.
Yes,
And
it
what's
does, because it is not every 10 minutes.
What
It
is the
very much
altitude-
matters.
What is the altitude and focal length of those photos?
That's
Stevie?
another good question.
It's not real, so I can't tell you.
No, the photos of your house are
Wait,
real.
the
but
photos
they're
of the
not
house
shot
aren't
from
real. Okay, sure.
Oh,
Like,
I don't know. Whatever.
So if
lower
I go to
orbit-
Google, the last time I looked at Google Earth and looked at my house, it had my old car in it. So unless there's like some dude driving around, marking
Right.
down, like, hey, there's a car, like he had a blue moon Mini Cooper with a white roof, and oh, there's a gigantic scratch on the roof. This is what you're gonna have to do when you like go into Photoshop and Photoshop all of these fake photos to make sure that the guy who owns the car knows, like, hey, we fooled you. That's not actually your car. The point is, Stevie, those Google images of your house aren't shot from freaking space, dude. They don't have a satellite up there zooming in on your house and taking photos of it. They actually use.
You cut out, Hassel.
Yeah, my headphone died. They actually use planes for that. And like there are some things we can tell about what they're claiming. So if Japan claims we have a satellite around 1 million miles away from Earth, and then gives us the specs of that quote unquote fake satellite in your mind, like you claim it's fake, and they tell us what the focal length is on that satellite, we know what we should expect to see because we know what we're going to be able to resolve with that focal length at a given distance. The problem is there is no focal length on the face of anything, Earth or anywhere else in the universe that we know of, that is capable of being at that distance that they claim it is and zooming in on your house. You would know this and understand this if you were an actual photo editor, my guy.
Also, welcome, Fuzzy, Level, and Voiceless. Good to have you here.
Hey, how are you doing?
Well, we're having a lot of fun. We've had some winners tonight. So,
Stevie, more to the point, how would you suggest that all of us in here, now that everybody else is here, Fuzzy, Level, Voiceless, Shen, myself, what should we look for in a fake photo to know that it's fake?
That's up to you. You use your own discernment to decide. Like, you don't need to
If
think
it
for you.
contradicts my presuppositions, that's how I know it's fake. Yeah.
What it sounds like.
I mean, it sounds like you guys don't want to think for yourselves.
It
so I don't
sounds
need
like,
to think for
in
you.
your mind, the only evidence that is credible is the evidence that aligns with your preconceived notions. Whereas I am constantly wrong about the things I understand, and I have experts like Hasselblad who come to my stream and educate me and correct my errors and improve my knowledge of the universe I live in. Because that's what someone interested in truth does.
It's almost like you have a preconceived solution that you won't accept not data unless it matches that solution, as opposed to, taking the data and then working out the solution from the data.
So, Stevie, would you like to know some ways to tell if an image has been altered to a point where you should have questions about it?
No thanks.
All right. Have a good day.
Didn't think so.
Oh, boy. That was good.
Oh, that's a truth seeker supreme.
Whew.
Heaven forbid you learn how to what photos have been in. Would you like to know? Nope. No
Nope.
need to know that.
Look flat, it's not real.